There's something I need to tell you about the nature of reality that will completely change how you see every mistake you've ever made. 3 years ago, I systematically destroyed my entire life. And I mean everything. My business, my relationships, my financial security, my living situation gone. Within 6 months, I had sabotaged every single thing that represented stability and success in my world. At the time, I thought I was having some kind of breakdown. I couldn't understand why I was making these destructive choices that went against every logical part of my mind. It felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, making decision after decision that I knew would hurt me. But here's what I discovered. I wasn't having a breakdown. I was having a breakthrough into multidimensional navigation. That version of me who seemed to be self-sabotaging wasn't unconscious at all. She was operating from a level of awareness I hadn't accessed yet, a part of my consciousness that could see across multiple timelines simultaneously and was guiding me toward a reality I couldn't even imagine from my limited perspective. You see, during my near-death experience, I had opened a timeline to continue living. But what I didn't understand then was that this created a quantum split, multiple versions of my reality running simultaneously. The Elena who seemed to be destroying everything was actually the part of me that could perceive all possible futures and was navigating toward the one timeline where something extraordinary could happen. That extraordinary thing? Returning to live close to my family so I could perform deep ancestral healing on both my maternal and paternal lineages. Healing generational trauma that had been passed down for centuries. Clearing karmic patterns that affected not just me, but dozens of souls across multiple generations. The business I destroyed? It was keeping me trapped in a city far from my family. The relationships I sabotaged? They were anchoring me to a version of reality where I couldn't access my full healing abilities. The financial security I lost? It was an illusion that prevented me from trusting the quantum field to provide what I truly needed. From a single reality perspective, it looked like self-destruction. From a multidimensional perspective, it was the most intelligent navigation I'd ever performed. Today, I'm going to show you how we're all living multiple realities simultaneously, how consciousness navigates between them without our linear minds realizing it, and most importantly, how to recognize when your soul is quantum jumping you toward your highest possible timeline. What I experienced wasn't mystical phenomenon, it was advanced quantum mechanics in action at the consciousness level. Let me show you the science that explains how we navigate multiple realities simultaneously. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett III, in Many Worlds Interpretation, proposed that every quantum measurement causes reality to split into multiple parallel worlds. This isn't science fiction, it's one of the leading interpretations of quantum mechanics. Every choice you make creates a branching point where multiple versions of reality continue to exist simultaneously. During my self-sabotage period, I was unconsciously navigating between these parallel realities, choosing the timeline that led to the greatest healing potential. David Bohm implicate and explicate order. Quantum physicist David Bohm showed that reality exists in two orders: the implicate order, where all possibilities exist simultaneously, and the explicate order, the reality we consciously experience. Consciousness acts as the bridge between these orders, constantly choosing which possibilities become manifest. My consciousness was operating from the implicate order, seeing all possible futures simultaneously, while my linear mind could only perceive the explicate order of apparent destruction. Physicist John Wheeler proved that observation doesn't just reveal reality, it creates reality. We are not passive observers of our lives, we are active participants in choosing which version of reality we experience. What looked like unconscious self-sabotage was actually my higher consciousness making highly conscious observations that steered me toward the timeline where I could serve my deepest purpose. When I finally understood this, everything changed. I realized I had been quantum navigating my entire life without recognizing it. Every mistake, every wrong turn, every moment that seemed destructive, all of it was actually my multidimensional consciousness steering me toward experiences that would activate dormant capabilities and fulfill soul-level contracts. Let me walk you through the exact process of how this quantum navigation unfolded, because understanding the mechanism will help you recognize it in your own life. During my NDE in the first episode, when I chose to return to life, I didn't just come back to the same timeline. I opened what I now understand was a quantum corridor, a pathway between multiple possible versions of my life continuing forward. In that moment between life and death, I could perceive at least 7 different timelines I could choose from. One where I continued my successful business exactly as before. One where I moved to a different country and started over. One where I focused entirely on spiritual teaching. One where I became a hermit and withdrew from the world. And the one I ultimately chose, the timeline of complete dissolution leading to ancestral healing. From the perspective of expanded consciousness, I chose the timeline with the most transformational potential, even though it looked like the most difficult path from a human perspective. For months after returning, I operated in what I call quantum confusion. Part of me was navigating from expanded awareness, making choices aligned with my soul's highest timeline. But my linear mind couldn't understand these choices and interpreted them as self-sabotage. The business destruction. I found myself making business decisions that made no logical sense. Turning down profitable clients, changing my message dramatically, alienating my existing audience. My rational mind was screaming, but something deeper kept directing me to dismantle everything I had built. What I understand now is that this business served the version of me on a timeline where I remained disconnected from my true healing abilities. To access the timeline where I could heal generations of ancestral trauma, that version of my work had to be completely dissolved. Simultaneously, I began ending relationships that had been important to me for years. Not through conflict, but through energetic incompatibility. I could feel that these connections anchored me to timelines where I would remain at a certain level of consciousness expansion, but couldn't access the deeper healing work I came to do. This wasn't rejection of these people, it was quantum navigation toward the timeline where I could serve at the highest level. The geographic reconfiguration. The most dramatic shift was the pull to return to live near my family. This required abandoning financial security and a comfortable lifestyle. But I could feel the timeline pulling me back to the physical location where ancestral healing could occur. The recognition, when destruction became creation. The breakthrough came 18 months into this process when I realized that every single thing I had lost had been replaced by something infinitely more aligned. Business evolution. Instead of the service-based business that kept me trapped in linear time, I developed abilities to interface directly with the quantum field for healing and consciousness expansion. Work that could only happen from this timeline. Relationship upgrade. The relationships that dissolved were replaced by connections with people operating at much higher levels of consciousness. Souls who could match and amplify my expanded awareness rather than anchoring me to limitation. Most profoundly, returning to live near my family allowed me to begin the deep ancestral healing work. I could literally feel the relief in my maternal and paternal lineages as generational patterns that had created suffering for centuries finally began to clear. Once I recognized what had been happening unconsciously, I began learning to navigate timelines consciously. This involves several specific practices. Timeline sensing. I learned to feel the energetic signature of different possible futures. Each timeline has a distinct vibrational frequency. The timeline of greatest service and evolution always feels simultaneously challenging and expansive. I began recognizing moments when multiple realities become available for selection. These usually occur during times of apparent crisis or major life decisions. The key is choosing from expanded awareness rather than fear-based limitation. I discovered I could consciously connect with versions of myself on other timelines and integrate their experiences and capabilities. This dramatically accelerated my evolution and healing abilities. Most remarkably, I learned that consciousness can influence past events by changing the timeline we're operating from in the present. This is how deep ancestral healing actually works. We shift into a timeline where the ancestral trauma never became locked into the family system. The ultimate purpose of this quantum navigation became clear when I began the ancestral healing work. By returning to live near my family, I could access the morphic field of my lineages and begin clearing patterns that had been creating limitation for generations. On my maternal line, I cleared patterns of financial scarcity and victim consciousness that had affected every woman in my family for at least 4 generations. On my paternal line, I dissolved patterns of emotional suppression and spiritual disconnection that had kept the men in my family trapped in limitation. But here's the quantum part. As I cleared these patterns, I could feel the healing rippling backward through time, affecting ancestors who had already passed, and forward through time, preventing these patterns from affecting future generations. This level of healing could only happen from the specific timeline I had navigated toward through what appeared to be self-destruction. What I'm sharing isn't just my story. It's a map for recognizing how your consciousness has been quantum navigating your entire life without your linear mind realizing it. You may already be navigating multiple realities if you're experiencing making choices that don't make logical sense but feel deeply right. Feeling pulled to change major life circumstances without clear reason. Experiencing synchronicities that seem to guide you towards specific outcomes. Feeling like you're becoming a different person than you used to be. Having dreams or visions of alternative versions of your life. These aren't problems to solve, they're invitations to recognize your multidimensional navigation abilities. Now let me introduce you to the Quantum Navigation Protocol. Step 1. Expand your time perspective. Stop judging your choices from the limited viewpoint of immediate outcomes. Your consciousness operates from a much broader timeline awareness than your linear mind can perceive. Step 2. Trust inexplicable impulses. When you feel strongly guided toward choices that don't make logical sense, consider that your multidimensional awareness might be navigating toward a timeline your rational mind can't yet see. Step 3. Look for the deeper pattern. Every apparent mistake or failure in your life has been steering you toward experiences that activate dormant capabilities and fulfill soul-level purposes. Start looking for the hidden intelligence in your seeming wrong turns. Step 4. Embrace quantum uncertainty. Living multidimensionally means accepting that you can't always understand your choices from your current perspective. Trust that your consciousness has access to information your linear mind doesn't. The gift of quantum confusion. If you're currently in a period where you feel like you're making choices that don't make sense, or if your life seems to be falling apart in ways you can't control, consider that you might be in a quantum navigation period. Your soul might be steering you toward a timeline where you can serve at a much higher level, clear ancestral patterns, or activate abilities that can only emerge through specific life experiences. Moving forward in multiple realities. We are all living multiple realities simultaneously. The question isn't whether this is happening, it's how consciously you want to participate in the navigation process. Every choice you make creates a branching point. Every decision steers you toward one version of reality, while others continue to exist in parallel dimensions. Your consciousness has been doing this your entire life. The difference is that now you can recognize it, trust it, and begin participating consciously in choosing which timeline serves the highest good for yourself and all beings. Next week, entering the transformation phase. We've completed the foundation of your quantum education. Next week, we begin the deep transformation phase where everything you've learned becomes lived experience. Our next transmission will be the sacred death, why you must die before you die, where I'll share the initiation process that dissolves ego-based reality and births your authentic multidimensional self. Your life has never been random. Every experience, every choice, every apparent mistake has been quantum navigation toward your highest possible timeline. The you that seems to make inexplicable choices isn't broken, she's operating from multidimensional awareness. The life changes that seem destructive might actually be reconstruction toward your soul's deepest purpose. Trust the process. Your consciousness knows things your mind hasn't figured out yet. This is Elena d'Avalon, reminding you that you are not living one linear life, you are navigating infinite possibilities across multiple realities simultaneously. And you're much better at it than you think.